Good morning. My name is John Martinez. I'm the president of the Regional Hispanic Contractors Association, and I welcome you to today's webinar, Capital Improvements, Process, Projects, and Solutions. I also want to thank our uh, co-organization. Today, the Minority Design Professionals Council and the RCA are providing this webinar. Infrastructure has been key, will continue to be key, especially in Texas, in the North Texas area. We've been working federally with the AGC as well as the National Association of Manufacturers to increase funding and develop consistent funding for infrastructure projects in our local areas. I want to thank the speakers. I know that you're taking valuable time from your work time and preparing the presentation and speaking today and addressing some of the questions. I urge everyone to submit questions. We will get to as many of them as possible, but this is a great opportunity for you to reach some of these professionals that may not always have the time to, or the frame of mind to be answering these questions. I also want to thank Alberto Mercado Flores and Louis Frisbee, who are co-chairs of the AEC committee, an important component of the RHCA. Their leadership in designing and developing this programming and how it's executed is invaluable. Alberto sits on the RHCA board. Louis Frisbee has been a longtime member of the RHCA and has also served in the board, on the RHCA board in the past. And I also want to thank the committee members that keep this type of programming relevant and that share this programming with non-RHCA members. Real quickly, I want to let you know that RHCA remains adamant in advocating for you. In the immediate past, we advocated with Dallas County to keep construction open. There was a moment there, a very tense weekend, where that was a possibility of closing construction to only absolutely state-sanctioned construction projects. So we work closely with that behind the scenes. We also been working statewide and nationally with OSHA on how we do COVID reportables and how we get funding on the PPP funding to our members and other small business owners. I think that PPP funding is critical because we've, for the most part, stayed open, and so we're still meeting full salary. So that was a critical part of what RCA was doing behind the scenes for you. And we also have a new RCA board chaired by Bianca Sandoval and Vice Chair Yesenia Garcia, Treasurer Evelyn Molina, and Board Secretary Angela Berry Roberson. So when things we start going back out, we'll make sure that you get to meet these people. Please continue to stay for the entire webinar, respond to the polls, and with that, I'll hand it over to Julio Flores.
Okay, thank you. So welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us this morning. We have a lot of information to cover today. I wanted to make sure that everybody knows this webinar is being recorded. We will provide the PowerPoint slides once the program concludes later on this afternoon. Reminder again, use the Q&A button so that you can ask any questions. And as John mentioned, we'll try to get to all of them. If we're not able to, we'll do our best to make sure we get your questions answered. You're more than welcome to use the chat, but we will be monitoring the Q&A portion. So at this time, I want to have Mr. Louis Frisbee. I'm sorry, I'm gonna launch a poll. It's 2 questions on the poll. If everybody can just take a moment and answer these 2 questions, we want to get a better feel of the audience. The first one is, what industry is your company in? Are you in architecture, engineering, construction, or other? And have you done business with the city of Garland, McKinney, Plano, or none of the above? So what I'm gonna do is give everybody about a minute to answer these questions, and then we'll show the results so that our presenters and the audience have a better feel for who's here. Okay, so I'm gonna give everybody about 30 more seconds. Okay, I'm gonna read the question again. The first one is, what industry is your company in? Architecture, engineering, construction, or other? Have you done business with the city of Garland, city of McKinney, or the city of Plano, or none of the above? I know one of the things, the organization has been known more for contractors. The RHA has been around for 25 years. The past few years, we've added the architecture and engineering side. And we've done, I think, a fantastic job of adding it and doing some great information that we've been able to provide in contact. So I'm going to give everybody about 10 more seconds to answer the question, and then we will share the results. And if you can please answer the question via the poll, not in the Q&A portal. Okay, I'm gonna end the poll right now, and I'm gonna share the results. So the first question, what industry is your company in? So you can see the breakdown. We have about 10% that are in architecture, 28% in engineering, over 52% in construction, and 24% in other. Question number 2, have you done business? About 18% with the city of Garland, 22% with the city of McKinney, 22% city of Plano, and 68% said they have not done business with either of these cities. Okay, so I am going to stop sharing the results, and up next, Mr. Lewis Frisbee, if you can give us a little bit more information about the partnering organization, the Minority Design Professionals Council.
Yes, good morning, everybody. Again, Lewis Frisbee with Metropolitan Infrastructure. I appreciate everybody being here this morning. The Minority Design Professionals Council of Dallas was founded in the mid-'80s with the intention of promoting business opportunities for professional service providers in the architecture, engineering, and construction related fields, primarily for minority owned businesses. Most of the participants are CEOs, presidents, partners, or managers of their respective companies. The MDPC primarily focuses on public agencies in the Dallas-Fort Worth metropolitan area, although they also look at other agencies statewide. So as an example, some of the key community agencies that have been focused on in the past have included TxDOT, DART, the NTTA, DFW Airport, City of Dallas, Dallas County, and the state of Texas agencies overall. So in a nutshell, that's who the MDPC is.
Okay, thank you, Louis. So next, I wanted to especially thank our sponsors. I know right now in the last 2 months, we've gone through a big change on how we're doing business. You know, without the support of these different companies, organizations like ours, the RHCA, would be very difficult for us to exist. So I want to make sure that we're very thankful for these companies to sponsoring us. So our first sponsor, I'm going to have Mr. Lewis Frisbee come back up with Metropolitan Infrastructure, and he'll give you a quick input on his business.
All right, Metropolitan Infrastructure is a company that I founded back in 2003. Our firm provides primarily civil structural engineering services with some support on the architectural and environmental engineering side. We do a lot of work with both public and private clients in the Dallas-Fort Worth metropolitan area. Our firm is registered through the Texas Board of Professional Engineers. We're also certified as a disadvantaged business enterprise, a small business enterprise, and minority business enterprise through the NCTRCA, as well as historically underutilized business by the state of Texas. Our primary technical areas of expertise include roadway design, drainage, hydraulics and hydrology, water utility systems. We also have a pretty strong structural component, including bridge design, retaining walls, and oddly enough, we also do a lot of hike and bike trails and the structures that go along with them. And on the private side, we do an extensive amount of site development plans and others. And down there at the bottom is our website and our phone number, should you want to get in touch with us or look us up a little more.
Okay, thank you, Louis. So up next, I have Ms. Rosa Navejar, President of the Rios Group. Rosa, if you can unmute yourself.
First, John, Julio, thank you for allowing us to be a part of this. We're very excited to be one of the sponsors. John and I have known each other for quite some time. I'm not going to say how many years, but we've known each other when I ran the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce for 11 years before founding the Rios Group in 2012. We are the largest firm to focus exclusively on subsurface utility engineering and utility coordination. When we started in 2012, we had 3 offices and 23 employees. Today, we have 5 offices and 76 employees. So our locations are in Dallas, Fort Worth, Round Rock, San Antonio, and Houston. We do have all the certifications, all the BEs, the hub, and so forth, to be able to do work. The experience that we have is unprecedented to none. We have, our engineers have anywhere from about altogether about 80 to 85 years experience in working in this industry with utility engineering. Our tagline is responsive, reliable, and results. One of the things Texas A&M did a study back in 2012 where it said for every dollar spent on SUE, you can save $12 to $22 in construction, because now you've saved yourself on risk mitigation, you've saved yourself on cost, and also there's safety involved because now you know where all utilities are buried. So thank you again for allowing us to be here with you all today, and we look forward to the rest of the presentation.
All right, thank you, Rosa. So up next, I have Mr. Alex Martinez, Program Director for Arredondo, Cepeda, and Burns.
Hi, good morning or afternoon. Again, I want to echo some of the other folks in thanking RHCA and MDPC for putting this together. And we're also excited to be part of this. AZ&B has been around since 1981. We're an engineering, surveying, environmental, and planning firm. We're based here in Dallas with branch offices in Houston, Laredo, San Angelo, and San Antonio. And we're pretty much focused on the public sector, both state and local level. Our core practices pretty much covers the needs of most municipalities, and we have done projects for most of the municipalities and the major public agencies here in North Texas. We execute our projects as a prime, and when it makes sense, we will joint venture. And we also contract as subcontractors or subconsultants to other firms. Feel free to take a screenshot for the pertinent contact information for myself, and if not, it will be included in the presentation that's sent out. So once again, thank you. Happy to be here.
Thank you, Alex. Up next, I have Ms. Tarika Cardenas, CEO for Perceptive Engineering and Construction Services.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Again, thank you, RHCA. You guys are at the forefront of supporting minorities and making sure we have a voice in this space. So it's greatly appreciated, and we are certainly honored to be a sponsor. Even in these times, we know that everyone still has to work. So we appreciate you all providing information, real-time information, and everything that's going on. So our organization, Perceptive Engineering and Construction Services, we have a couple of pillars. We do consult. Our team has roughly about 75 years combined experience in construction, engineering, from data centers all the way to high-end interior finish out. So our primary focus when we started in 2015 was heavy consulting as it related to the manufacturing industrial industry, as it relates to process improvement and new plant construction. And we've recently shifted in 2018 to focus primarily on construction. So our first space and focus is on that high-end interior finish out space, and we're self-performing drywall. So we're happy to get our feet wet, transitioning from the engineering side, primarily structural. So we have a PE on our team that he's licensed in Texas, Colorado, Georgia, Alabama, and California as well. So we try to kind of stretch ourselves to get as much exposure as possible. We also assist with in-house management, construction management, and administration as well. So we're excited to be a part of the committee, learning a lot from those involved. And definitely if you guys want to learn more about us, and excited to work with other people in the committee and a part of RACHA, our information's below.
Okay, thank you, Tarika. Up next, I have Angel Sanchez with MAS, or MAS Civil Engineers.
Hi, good morning, everybody. Yeah, I'm Angel Sanchez. I guess a brief overview of our company. We were established in 2015 in Fort Worth, Texas. We are a civil engineering firm. We focus on both municipal and private development clients. We do roadway construction, roadway reconstruction, water resources, water, wastewater, and storm drainage improvement projects. On the private side, we also do some land planning, civil site plan development, single family, multifamily, and commercial developments as well. We do hold active certifications as SBE, MBE, DBE, and HUB, and we are certified by the state of Texas to offer engineering services in the state of Texas. Please feel free to take a screenshot of the PowerPoint presentation, and if there's anything we can do with you, or if you see any opportunities, please feel free to reach out anytime. I'd love to speak to you. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Angel. Contact information for Angel is right here. You can take a screenshot. His phone number is 817. That's one of the questions that's being asked. I do encourage, as we're going through the PowerPoint, feel free to take screenshots. Last thing I want to do is delay information that the audience needs. Next, so I want to really thank our sponsors. I know that they thanked us, but really I want to say thank you to everybody. Next, we're going to get started with the core of this webinar, which are the presentations that everybody's waiting for. So I'm going to bring up Ms. Gina Garcia. She's principal with Paredes Garcia and Associates. She will introduce our first presenter, Clay Limscomb. Gina?
Thank you, Julio. And I want to thank everybody that is present on this meeting here today. Clay currently serves as the Community Investment Program, or the CIP Engineering Manager for the City of Plano. They have a 5-year CIP that is to guide the planning, building, operating, and maintenance of their capital improvement projects. Clay and his team manage a 2019-2020 budget of more than $193 million in street improvements, municipal drainage, water, and sewer projects. I've known Clay for quite some time. We're both graduates of UTA, and his presentation is titled "The City of Plano's Community Investment Program and COVID-19." Let's all please give a warm Zoom welcome to Clay Lipscomb.
Gina, appreciate the opportunity to be here today and speak to you guys. Thanks for inviting me. Happy to talk to you guys about things going on in Plano, what we're doing with our CIP program, how it's been impacted somewhat by COVID-19 and some of the solutions and things we're working on right now. Leo, you can go to the next slide. So I was asked to provide a map of the location of Plano. I hope most of you guys know where we are. One of the largest suburbs in the state of Texas, the 9th populous city in Texas. We're just north of Dallas, surrounded by pretty much the Dallas North Tollway, 75 on the east side. There's 9 cities, I think, just surrounding us, but we're located northeast of DFW Airport. We have a population of 285,000 people. We're currently going through the census, and the estimated population 300,000 is projected in 2040, which means we're not growing anymore at all, hardly. The Legacy West development was completed last year. That was the influx of the Toyota headquarters, Chase Bank, FedEx, Liberty Mutual, quite a few large companies relocating headquarters and large offices to that area. It's kind of the last major development project we have. 95% fully developed. There's still a few farmsteads, homesteads that are holding out, but you know, as future generations come along, we'll see how those are impacted. We have a 0.6% annual growth rate, 1.1% 5-year compounded. We're not growing much at all anymore. So what that means is that the 40, 50-year-old infrastructure that was put in place between rapid growth in 1970 and 2000 is all deteriorating and in immediate need of replacement, maintenance, rehabilitation, renewals, etc. Go to the next slide. So just an overview real quickly, our community investment programs, 5-year guide, planning, building, operating, and maintaining capital projects, just like Gina mentioned. We have total budget this year in our CIP program of $329 million. Highlighted the yellow items. Those are particularly interested in our engineering team, the GO funds, which is our street improvements, water and sewer fund, the municipal drainage fund, which is solely funded through our drainage fees in the city of Plano. The $78.2 million is slightly inflated this year due to the rehabilitation of the Concrete Mall culvert systems. That's about we estimated about a $70 million project. Usually we have $5 to $10 million in our municipal drainage fund. We're working to revamp our drainage fee currently and add quite a bit of funding to that. We've got lots of needs, stream bank improvements, undersized drainage systems, etc. This program is voted by 3 referendums that occurred in 2013, 17, 19, and then we are currently ramping up for a new one in 2021. How that's going to be affected by COVID and the imminent recession will yet to be seen. Our GO fund projects are typically designed and constructed to have a 20-year lifespan minimum. Next slide. So drilling down on that into our actual engineering CIP team, I work for a team of 7, including myself. We have 6 senior engineers that manage right now currently 70 projects. This includes street fund, water fund, wastewater fund, and the drainage fund, again, inflated the concrete mall improvements, with a budget of over $194 million this year. You can see how it's kind of broken out into neighborhood streets and alleys, major arterials, capacity improvements, and screening walls. You can go to the next slide. This is an overview, just a map. Encourage you guys to visit this if you're interested in just understanding all the work that's going on in our CIP program. Each one of these shapes, circles, lines, outlines a specific project in different locations across the city, gives you a timeline, gives you a project manager, project number. If you have any inquiries, any questions, please feel free to reach out. Completion dates shown on here are generally the end of construction time. It's just a valuable map. You can toggle on different things in design, construction, streets, drainage improvements, etc. You can go to the next slide. So this is just a quick chart. Our engineering team consists of the director and then 5 different divisions underneath. We have development, obviously all of our, redevelopment projects run through that division. The compliance division handles ADA, franchise utility coordination. We have facilities. They manage every building owned by the city of Plano. And then transportation is all of our signal systems, our traffic management center, who aren't very busy right now, ironically. And then our CIP team. We work real closely with the public works team as well. That's why I have Jerry Cosgrove listed on here. I'll get to that here in just a second. You can go to the next slide. My team consists of 6 engineers, as I discussed earlier. Handle over 70 projects. Each engineer has between 10, 15 projects at a time, either in design, construction, there's various studies going on, etc. Go to the next slide. We're not all work all the time. We do have a good time. We get out of the office. This is us. We just played whirly ball. I don't know if you guys have ever done a team building event with your groups, but I highly recommend it. It was something I was dreading, but it turned out to be a great time. This is most of our team with a few extras added in. You can go to the next slide. So Plano adopted the SERVE mission statement, I guess, or just more or less, how we conduct business, how we engage with our projects, with internal clients, external residents, with contractors, stakeholders. And so we've really adopted these pillars in our team: safe and high quality facilities, exceptional customer service, it's paramount in the city of Plano, effective and responsive communication to stakeholders, financially responsible. We try to keep change orders to a minimum. We are always evaluating lower cost alternatives, cost benefit analysis, and then public safety is obviously paramount all the time during and after construction. Go to the next slide. So our responsibilities: we manage design and construction of new infrastructure, rehabilitation of existing infrastructure. And those seem like minor 2 bullet pointed items. Again, there's over 70 projects current in our team, everything from major arterial streets, screening walls, collector streets, alley projects, water projects, sewer projects, drainage improvement projects within their channels. We work closely with our parks team, with our public works team constantly to make sure that we're, when projects exceed their maintenance lifespan, that, we're actually being engaged in the design and construction, making sure those are renewed for 20 years or so, and just effectively managing that, mainly asset managing all of our infrastructure. Franchise utility coordination is a big emphasis here in the city of Plano. Assist citizens with drainage erosion issues. We're constantly going out and evaluating string banks, erosion issues, drainage concerns, flooding issues, and then updating the TCQ stormwater permit. Go to the next slide. So additional support, our public works team, they handle asset management, project developments with us. I'll just list a few things. Contract management is a new division for us. We piloted in late 2018, implemented 100% of our projects in 2019. They handle all of our professional service agreements, our contracts with consultants, materials testing, construction contracts, change orders, contract modifications, it really has streamlined that whole process for us, made it a lot more efficient. It's just become a well-oiled machine now. We used to handle it all out of our department with admin, and it was just overwhelming for them. So there's 4 individuals in our contract management team. If you work for the city of Plano, you'll get to know them real well. And they're great at facilitating those. We do have an accountant on our staff in engineering who handles all of our invoicing, pay requests as effectively as possible. We typically turn those around within 2 weeks or so. It's again, something we kind of take pride in. Go to the next slide. So consultant selection. We had our most recent consultant selection was in 2019, in May. We put out an RFQ with 10 categories, 3 different topics, I guess, water, wastewater, civil survey, geotech, and materials testing. We had 298 submittals in those 10 categories. We shortlisted down to 10 firms or so in each category. It's overwhelming and it's a lot of review. Our entire team's involved in the review process. We have different percentage weights in those RFQs based on what topic of the RFQ it is, your relevant experience, your approach to the project, etc. The majority of questions I get are, how do we get selected? Obviously, if you haven't done work in the city of Plano, come and meet us and come schedule a meeting with me and let's sit down and talk. Caleb's always available as well. The director of engineering. We'd love to get to know new firms, get to know you guys, get to know what you're capable of, and see if there's new innovative approaches to things. We plan, this is only a 2-year period, so it's already over halfway done. We'll implement our new projects this summer for next fall, and then we'll go through another RFQ expected next May and go to the next project. Next slide. So the design process, this is typically a pretty accurate flow chart for what the design process can look like, but to simplify it, I think it's pretty straightforward. We collaborate with Public Works every year around this time. We go through a master list of all their complaints, all their maintenance issues, things they've been maintaining for years, water line breaks, etc. And we put together kind of a prioritized list of projects. And that's everything from major arterials to alleys. Screening walls are included in that. And then we go through consultant selection every year where we have the shortlisted consultants that are listed on our website that were selected in May 2019. We assign projects to those consultants. We begin scoping those projects in July. Council approves our new budget in September, and those contracts will go to approval in October. And then we go through conceptual, preliminary, final design. Obviously, there's easement acquisition, franchise, utility coordination, and then the bidding construction phase. You can go to the next slide. So during the bidding construction phase, it's heavily monitored, managed by our contract management team. They help us put together the bid proposals, the solicitations. Everything is run through ionwave.net. We switched over to that about 1.5 years ago. They seem to like it a lot better. It really automates a lot of the process for them. There's commodity codes similar to BidSync you can sign up for. It's free to register. You won't have any marketing employees to sign up, pay money, et cetera, like that. Not a lot of email blasts that BidSync has done in the past. So they like it. It's a lot more user-friendly for them. Everything can be submitted electronically, which is great. They handle pre-award meetings, which is a new implementation here. It's basically after the project's bid, we sit down with the consultants, have an award meeting basically to go over, understand everything in the contracts, what you bid upon, etc. They handle the contract. They put together the contracts and the notice proceeds, and then they handle our project closeout as well. During construction, our PMs run the show. We have an inspection team of 10, but the CIP PM is coordinating constantly with our consultants, the contractor, the inspectors, the residents, if there's franchise conflicts that pop up, etc. Every single thing going on. So they're busy. Not only are they managing 10 to 15 projects, but each one of them, they're handling a lot of the construction inspection as well, or the construction management. Go to the next slide. So I'll speed through this just real quickly. That red box got moved over a little bit. Sorry for the issue there, but over the last 5 years or so, we've increased bidding of projects significantly. Kind of have a turnover in our department, some more schedule-oriented derivatives or direction, and so we've really cranked out a lot more projects, a lot more value, and we're wrapping up things and moving things along in a lot more efficient manner. Next slide. So just a few current initiatives: increase project capacity and outputs for these different departments, increase capacity at key intersections. We have 32, I believe, intersections under design or construction right now in the city. The concrete mall drainage and sanitary sewer improvements are paramount to support the development that's going on there and the redevelopment of concrete mall. Plano Event Center, we're actually looking to develop that property, which is a big initiative for us. Put in a couple of hotels, making it a much more friendly place for conferences, out of town folks to come and have events there. We are adopting the new COG specs as of June 1st, and we've updated our entire construction standards. Those are out on our website now, which I'll share at the end of this presentation. We're currently working on updates to our drainage design manual, water sewer design manual, thoroughfare standards. And you can go to the next slide, Julio. So just quick, huge projects coming up, overview. These are arterial street improvement, our street capacity improvement projects we've got going on for the first time in many years. Public Works and Engineering decided in the last couple of years it was time to redo some of our arterial roadways. Parker Road, Shiloh Road, kind of the big first ones to go. Shiloh Road, we're just expanding. We're adding in 2 more lanes, bike lanes, replacing a bridge. Parker Road is a full reconstruction of that entire 6-lane corridor for about a half a mile. It'll be a kind of a pilot project right in the center of Plano to see how it goes and see what lessons we can learn and how we can improve and how we can move towards Park Boulevard, which is the next major street or arterial improvement project, which will be about a mile between Custer and Independence, scheduled to start design in October this year. We'll look to go to construction in October 2021. Lots of intersection improvements as well going on that are bidding this summer that are 10-year projects in the making. So lots going on. Next slide. So just some COVID impacts real quickly. This is a timeline. I was going back through emails yesterday or a couple days ago, and it was amazing all of the information and everything that happened within just a few days. And the amount of emails, the amount of coordination efforts to try to ramp everybody up to get home. It was a little bit of a tumultuous time. It seems like a decade ago now, but everybody was frantically trying to figure out how to navigate these waters. So we actually put everything on hold on March 19th. We delayed bids, pre-bids, any kind of external or any type of new construction, anything like that for a couple of weeks. We had to ramp up our basically telebidding process and how that would work. And so then we finally held a pre-bid meeting on April 21st, our first one. Now we've held multiple pre-cons and we've had multiple bid openings now since COVID began just a little over 2 months ago. Next slide. So just a few of the impacts for us in our group. We had to develop guidelines for employees working from home. How did that work? How does that look? It's never been done before. We didn't have the technology to support everybody going home. It became a kind of an emergency effort to get everybody ramped up. We had to borrow laptops. We had to figure out technology needs. We had to teach everybody how our networks worked from the outside of the city. And within a week or two, everybody was home. And it started out a little rough. You know, we had to learn Skype in a much more efficient manner than we were using it in previous, before COVID impacted. And so everything we do now is telecommuting, and it's to me it's become much more efficient. Our meetings are more productive. They're not as long. It's more, you know, not around sitting around looking at each other and waiting for ideas. It's just go, and I think they've been very good. It's been very beneficial. Financial impacts, you know, we froze positions. We are going to be impacted next year. We already know that. Not sure the percentage points yet as far as sales revenue and hotel and tourist revenue, but I know it's going to be a significant dent. So things will be impacted moving forward. Maintenance projects have been paused. Public Works had a few projects ready to go to council approval. They were held back just because a lot of those revenues, we're not sure of where that money is going to come from now. Go funds are not impacted at this time. So we're still bidding lots of projects. We're still beginning construction, still in construction. Our budget season's underway right now. So it'll be interesting to see in September what's approved and how that's impacted. Our inspectors are working from the field. They're not coming into the office, but they're still working 100%. I feel like our team has become, you know, 100% efficient working from home all the way around. So the plan for re-entering workplace is unknown at this point. We're slowly, the city of Plano is being very safe and cautious in ramping up personnel back inside the workplace and making sure conditions are safe. And as long as we can function, you know, with 95, 100% efficiency, there's no need for us to be back in there until things are safe and everybody's comfortable. Go to the next slide, Julio. So just a few silver linings. We got to test work from home. It's worked great, in my opinion. Our processes and procedures we've been able to catch up on. There's some things I've been wanting to implement for a long time, including standard bid item lists. We've got a really good spreadsheet now developed, put together by several of our employees. We've reviewed all of our general notes. Construction's been expedited. Traffic's been very low. We've been able to close multiple lanes, you know, permanently without impacting traffic volumes or congestion at all. Less commute time is less stress. For me, I live 20 miles away from the job. It's just so nice to wake up in the morning, start my day, you know, at 7 o'clock and just eat lunch with my family and be done. And I feel like I've been much more efficient. And the commute time, the 2 hours every day of in and out of the office is really eased. It's been a really big silver lining for me. You can go to the next slide, Ilya. So here's some information, some websites, the CIP program you can go to. We do have a CIP report on there that shows all of the projects going on, not just in my team and the CIP engineering team, but parks, facilities, public works, when those projects are planning to bid, what level they're at. Feel free to take a screenshot of this. Shoot me any information if you'd like to come by and visit. Be more than happy to sit down with you guys and talk about any initiatives you want to talk about or what you guys have going on and you know, how it might fit with the city of Plano. So if anybody has questions, I'll look at the chat real quick.
Yeah, so due to time, we're gonna have time for a few questions. The first one, will Ion Wave communicate to contractors in upcoming bid opportunities?
Yes. So if you go and register an Ion Wave, there's those commodities. And what those are, you know, you toggle on the different subject or keywords that you want emailed or sent out. So if I think you can actually toggle on different entities as well. And it'll send you, I think, a report, you know, weekly or every day about what's upcoming. And it's worked really well. If you have any questions about that, reach out to me. I can put you in touch too with our contract management team, and they can get you set up. But it's free to register. It's pretty simple.
Okay, so due to time, Clay, if you feel free to answer these questions through the chat typed. I'm going to move forward with our next presentation. So I'm going to bring up Alberto Mercado Flores. Alberto's one of our board of directors, and he's been very instrumental in the ideas and planting the seeds on doing some of these webinars and even some of the face-to-face events that we had in the past. Alberto?
Happy Friday, everyone. We're glad you could join us today. Our second speaker today is Nick Atay. Nick currently serves as the Engineering Capital Improvements Program Manager for the City of McKinney. Nick manages approximately $500 million capital improvement portfolio, including various streets, drainage, traffic, water and wastewater projects. Nick is giving a presentation about McKinney's capital improvement program and the impacts of COVID-19 on the city's budgets, projects, and procedures. Please join me in welcoming Nick. Thank you.
Thank you, Alberto. First of all, I want to thank RCHA for having me. These organizations, from my experience, are so important to our industry. So really appreciate the opportunity to be here and speak. Again, Nick Atay, I've been with the city about 4 years. A couple years of my role here as the engineering CIP manager for the city of McKinney. Really, my role with the city is to ensure that we are delivering on our capital improvements plan, kind of provide that strategic direction, aligning with the goals of the city council, and then also administering our professional services contracts, overseeing the budget process, and customer and stakeholder relations. You can go to the next slide. So just a few facts about the city of McKinney. We're about 30 minutes north of Dallas. We are the county seat of Collin County. Our current population is right at 200,000. We were just named the 4th fastest growing large city in the US between 2010 and 2019. And we were named the #1 best place to live by Money Magazine in 2014. Just a couple other fun facts. Our ETJ outside of our city limits is huge. So most people don't realize that City of McKinney is only about 55% built out. So we anticipate once we ultimately build out our city limits, we'll be about 400,000 people. You know, we're a very diverse community. If you haven't been to our historic downtown square, it's a wonderful place to go. Obviously, not so much right now. Things are starting to open back up, but we've got a lot of festivals and events down there at any given time of the year. We have our own national airport that the city operates, McKinney National Airport. We've got about 11 square miles of 2 master plan communities, Craig Branch and Stonebridge Ranch. If you haven't heard, Byron Nelson's actually moving to McKinney here in 2021. We've got a lot of open parks and trails, kind of makes us unique. If you look at some of our northwest sectors of the city, we've kind of got some unique topography that I feel like is you know, going to bring a lot of value as development occurs over the next 10 years or so. Go to the next slide. So just an overview of the CIP. I know Clay's already kind of touched on a lot of this, but we also have a 5-year plan. Really, that purpose of that is to identify a plan for major capital projects, looking at all of our funding sources, and kind of making sure that we have a sustainable plan for the future and the infrastructure needs. The 3 pillars there that you see: strategic planning, physical growth, financial capacity. Those kind of tie into how we plan the CIP. So from a strategic standpoint, you know, how are these projects fitting in with our long-range goals, strategic goals, maintenance priorities? From a physical growth standpoint, we are a very fast-growing community. You know, what is the need for infrastructure? How do we fit that in timing and budget-wise? And then obviously from a financial standpoint, funding is limited. So how do we make sure that we're being good stewards of the money that we have to put those priorities in the right place? And how that kind of works is each year our city council reviews the 5-year CIP. They'll adopt the budget for the first year and also approve the 5-year plan. We also have the same fiscal year cycle as Plano, starting in October. Next slide. Just a little overview of kind of how our capital groups are split up, a little bit unique in that we have several different departments handling different capital projects. I'm under development services, which houses engineering. We manage streets, traffic, water, wastewater, and drainage capital projects. We have someone that manages our facilities capital projects out of Public Works. Obviously, Parks and Recreation handles their capital projects, parks, trails, and landscaping projects. And then the airport is kind of their own animal, handling all the capital projects associated with the airport. As far as my team specifically, I've got 5 project managers that are juggling anywhere from 10 to 15 projects apiece. We have a very high volume. We've got about 90 active capital projects right now. Because we're a growing community, we have needs on both ends of the spectrum. So we've got a lot of maintenance needs as well as new growth. So it's kind of a balance between, how we prioritize those projects. A couple of notes on our project development. We outsource most of our AE services, and similar to Plano, we issue RFQs by category. We're typically on a 2 to 3 year cycle for each of those RFQs, and we will retain a short list of qualified firms to provide services under each category. Also wanted to mention that we currently do not have any hub DBE requirements. That's something that I know has been brought up from time to time. There just has not been a desire to go that route at the City of McKinney at this time. Next slide. So a little bit about our project development. Again, Clay touched on a lot of this, so I'm interested to make sure we're staying on track timing wise. I'll just highlight a few things. So typically at the very beginning, we identify projects based on need. So it could be a capacity need from a mobility or utility standpoint, safety, function, development, support, maintenance. There's all sorts of different needs that projects are prioritized, included in the 5-year CIP. Once projects are funded, they're typically assigned to a project manager here internally. We'll hold a kickoff meeting, bring the right stakeholders, verify the scope, the outcome, budget, all the things that happen in the planning spectrum. Could be 2 years down the road before a project actually gets funding. So we try to reevaluate those before we bring on a consultant. Obviously, we'll select a consultant. We don't do a rotation base on our short list. We pair the right consultant with the right project. Those contracts are executed and we go into the project development phase. Obviously, if it's a construction project, there'd be a bid and construction phase as well. Next slide. So try to put together a quick checklist, because I always get questions on, how can we do business with the city? So I always tell folks, first take a look at what your expertise is and try to determine, where does that fit into the City of McKinney? If you're a firm that specializes in SUE, well, we may not have a specific project for SUE. So you'd probably want to focus on teaming up with someone for some of our projects. They're going to have some SUE needs with those projects. If you're focused on transportation, that's where you'd kind of look towards the transportation RFQs. We've got RFQs for various categories. I'll show those on a slide here coming up. But before you reach out to us, I would encourage you just to make sure you understand kind of what your expertise is, where you're looking to fit into the city. And then just like Clay said, reach out to us. I don't know how many times folks have just submitted SOQs and, they do a debrief and kind of wondering how they can improve. And it's the first time that we've had an opportunity to speak with them. So, myself, our director, a lot of our staff here, more than willing to take, 30 minutes to schedule a meeting or a phone call to kind of make sure you're headed in the right direction. Similar to Plano, we use IonWave. So make sure that you log on to IonWave and make sure you're registered as a vendor. Not only is that required if you want to bid on anything, but it gives you an opportunity to get notified as RFQs and construction bids come up. You can kind of talk with our purchasing folks if needed on, how that RFQ process works. And as mentioned, when you do meet with us, be prepared to talk about your team's capabilities and experience. Tell us what sets you apart from a lot of the competition. Just knowing that when we put these RFQs out, we're getting, anywhere between 40 and 80 SOQs per category. I've got some questions there that I always encourage folks to ask is, when do you anticipate the next RFQ to be released? We typically are on a 3-year cycle, but depending on schedules, those could be advanced sooner. What can we do to be better prepared to submit for the SOQ? What do your best AE firms do for you, and what are your challenges? I think if you talk to your client, build that relationship, they'll kind of be open with you on, what are some of the challenges, and provide you some opportunities to kind of shine when you submit your SOQ. And then if it's going to be more than 6 months out, try to find an opportunity to follow up. I mean, this could be through an introduction of other key team members. We've always been very open to opportunities for brown bags. If your firm has a neat project, innovative approach to projects, we'd love to hear about it. Next slide. Just again, I wanted to include this slide because I know a lot of folks always ask, how can we do better at, coming on the top of your short list. And again, first bullet point, just make time to build a relationship before submitting your SOQ. Read the RFQ carefully. Every city's going to have their own requirements and processes for how they select AE firms. So just keep that in mind and know that, you're probably not going to be able to use a old SOQ and make modifications to it. Page limits are there for a reason. I always joke around about that. Before coming to the city, I was on the private side for about 10 years, submitting SOQs for projects. So I always hated seeing these small page limits, but I guess until you've been in the shoes of having to review hundreds of SOQs, you probably would understand, but make sure you use that space wisely. Be mindful of generic information. It's kind of like when you're going house hunting and you look at a lot of houses, they all start to look the same. So make sure that you're putting meaningful information there that really applies to you specifically. Use graphics and figures wisely. Make sure your organizational chart covers all the disciplines that would be needed. We typically do an on-call RFQ, so it's not for a specific project. So make sure that you're showing all the capabilities of your team. Make sure your representative projects are similar and diverse in nature, and that they apply to the projects that you're trying to get with the city. And for our RFQs, at least in engineering, we always have a representative project that we try to get a write-up on. So make sure if you do want to do work for the city of McKinney and you have an opportunity to submit an SOQ, please go visit those sites and make sure that, you can get with your team and find out, what's your team's specific approach to that project. So that's what really kind of will help you stand out. Next slide. A few upcoming RFQ opportunities. So similar to Plano, ours are actually on a 3-year cycle. Last RFQs were approved back in 2018. So we're expecting probably a mid-2021 RFQ to be released for 4 different disciplines. So we'll have on-call roadway design services. This will be for new roadway construction, arterial projects, intersection improvements, street reconstructions, kind of A to Z on the roadway side. Could even include some studies, alignment studies, things like that. On-call utility design services. This is for water and wastewater related projects. So this could span anywhere from maintenance projects where we're replacing water and wastewater mains in residential areas, all the way to construction of a new pump station facility or rehab of elevated storage tanks or other water wastewater facilities. We do have an RFQ for on-call geotechnical services, but really the contracts that we award through that RFQ are mostly geared towards materials testing contracts for our construction projects. We have on-call drainage services. These are for flood studies. We also retain consultants to assist us with development review of flood studies. And then not included on here, we also have a traffic engineering RFQ that'll actually be coming out sooner, probably fall of this year. That's going to be for signal design, traffic studies, illumination, and ITS projects. Next slide. Real quick summary of COVID impacts. Kind of broke this into different categories. on the design side, we really haven't seen a lot of impacts to date. Most of our consultants, they were set up pretty well to work remotely. So we haven't seen a lot of lag or delay in production on the design side, which is great because we've got a lot of time sensitive projects. On the construction side, maybe a little bit more. We didn't have any suspension or delay of construction projects. We actually had one project that was going to be kind of right in the forefront of our historic downtown. As you can imagine, a lot of small businesses in that area had been impacted over the months of March and April. So there was a lot of discussion on whether or not we move that project forward. Very heated discussion in council, a lot of emotion from business owners. That project ultimately was going to move forward, but we've kind of prepared and put very strict milestone dates in that project, incentives to make sure that that project is impacts those folks as minimal as possible. We don't have any city policy for COVID for our contractors. Typically in our pre-construction meetings, we found that most of our contractors have their own policies and procedures in place, following CDC guidelines, social distancing as best as practical for construction projects, daily temperature checks, PPE is required. So good to hear that a lot of the contractors are taking that seriously. On the planning and funding side, obviously, as Clay mentioned, there's a lot of uncertainty right now. This is kind of uncharted territory. We know that there's going to be sales tax impacts. Our general obligation bonds, we've already been asked by our finance department to try to reduce those over at least the next year or two. So, what is that going to mean for projects moving forward? And it puts a higher emphasis on us trying to secure grant funding for projects as well. We did recently, 2019, get voter authorization for a $350 million bond program. From our group standpoint, $100 million of that bond program was towards transportation and street improvements. So, the benefit to that is, that voter authorization occurred in 2019. It's just maybe going to take a little bit longer to spend that money on projects moving forward. From an internal standpoint, we are phasing folks back in slowly. We've got about, I would say, 20% of folks are in the office right now. Our field staff are still out, doing their jobs on various projects. We've got folks staggering in and out of the office. We, just like I'm sure everyone else has, we've kind of scrambled to get the technology to where it needs to be. I think the silver lining of all this is we're all going to be virtual meeting experts by the time this kind of gets finished. In-person meetings have been suspended, so we're using Zoom, we're using Skype, we're using Teams, we're using WebEx, you name it. We do have a hiring freeze in place, at least for now. Also, travel training is on hold, so sure y'all are aware and seen a lot of folks and conferences changing to virtual conferences. So, kind of doing the best they can with what they have. And then, kind of iterating there. I don't know what the new normal is going to be. I have trouble kind of envisioning things going back to normal in the next year or so. I think the new normal is going to be different, but, things are moving forward. Confident that we'll get through this and we'll make it. Next slide. I did not include some links in here that I probably should have. We do have a website of our current capital projects. It's mckinneytexas.org/project status. I will get that link out through email to get sent out. But with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Nick. And you can also put that link in the chat if you'd like to share it with everybody. So at this time, we'll take a minute to take some questions. We had a question from the previous Clay. They're asking, what is the City of Plano's tech investment in construction management applications? Field reports, activity, tracking, etc. And Nick and Clay, feel free to chime in on that question.
So I answered in the chat. Sorry about that.
Okay.
So we are currently in the development of a statement of objectives with our purchasing team to release this summer and implement a new project construction management software package for all of our divisions with CIP projects. So obviously it'll be a 2 to 3 year process of vetting out vendors and then ramping up and migrating data and then hopefully training, et cetera, over the next couple of years. But we're currently working to try to implement a project. We run a pretty archaic system. I mean, we use a lot of Microsoft Word components, Access Database, reports a lot of our, develops a lot of our reports for us. We use a lot of Excel spreadsheets. It's been that way for years and years. And so it's time for us to try to move into the 21st century a little bit more.
Okay, thank you. And Nick?
Yeah, we're kind of in the, the same boat. I think that, things have been done certain ways for years and years and years. Technology, it seems like, is finally getting to the point where there's a lot of solutions out there. We are actually in the process citywide of updating our ERP, which is kind of the central data source for the city. Since that's such a big component, we're kind of in a holding pattern until that gets integrated over the next year or two. We have seriously considered some of the major vendors out there for kind of construction project management solution. I think the problem that we've run into is a lot of those would need to be customized quite a bit. So again, it's no doubt going to happen over the next few years. Just a matter of kind of getting to the point where we've got a new centralized ERP system in place and we're ready to make the leap of faith.
Okay. All right. And then one other question is, how would a concrete subcontractor know of bid opportunities?
So again, you're going to want to, make sure that your company is registered through IonWave. I think as Clay mentioned, they've got it broken up into kind of categories. So, if one of the categories is general construction or concrete construction, you would get notified as those opportunities come up. But again, just key point there is just make sure you're registered with any city's purchasing portal.
Right. And they would need to make sure to see if the scope of work is something they're able to do, and maybe they don't bid directly to the city, but they would need to find the GC that's looking at bidding the work. And I know,
correct,
when we're meeting face to face, you could meet those GCs, but I think it's key that the cities provide, I don't know if there's a website or a link of there's pre-qualified general contractors or primes, but seeing how we can get that information so that the subs can submit the bids to the GCs and the GCs reach out to the subs. I think that's a key point. Okay. And if we have did Nick or Clay, do you have any other things you want to chime in, or David, on that question of technology and bids? No? Okay. All right. So up next, I am going to introduce bring back up Mr. Lewis Frisbee. Lewis, if you can unmute yourself and introduce our next speaker.
Yes, the next speaker is going to be Mr. David Trevino with the City of Garland. David currently serves as the City of Garland's Capital Projects Portfolio Manager, where he is involved in implementing the 2019 bond program. He is formerly with the City of Dallas. David will be discussing opportunities to do business with the City of Garland. Please help me in welcoming David as our final speaker today.
Thank you, Louis. Appreciate that introduction, and good afternoon to everyone. Thank you for joining us. And I want to, first of all, acknowledge my two predecessors on the panel, the great presentation. And they've covered a lot of points that we also do in the City of Garland. My approach in this presentation is a little different slant, not only what projects we have going on, but also in marketing to the public sector, because as most of you know, that the primary purpose of having these webinars and seminars is to try and do business development, procure business, and grow your business. And with my prior experience, both as an architect and owner in a private architectural firm, an owner in a construction company, and now in the public sector, I've been on all three sides of this three-legged stool. So I've been in your shoes as far as trying to get work and get the project. And so from that point of view, my presentation is more about developing business development and marketing to the public sector. So next slide, Julio. The agenda that I have briefly, you can read for yourself, the marketing, and there's differences between the private sector and public sector because all government agencies, state, local, federal, whoever it may be, have procurement regulations. And the better you know and understand those regulations, the better you're going to be at responding to RFQs and responding to bids. So it's incumbent on each of the firms to, if you're going to do work in the public sector, you need to become familiar with the procurement guidelines and state law, especially for cities have to follow state laws. You know, if you want more information about the state laws, give me a call and I'll offer my information. But cities also primarily use 5 project delivery methods: CMAR, job costing, contracting, low bids, CSPs, construction managers. So anyway, we have 5 primary delivery methods. And for the most part, for professional services, I know a lot of you, about half of my audience here is about contractors, but the others are design professionals. And for the most part, cities follow a 2-step process with an RFQ and an RFP, and do the evaluations and getting shortlisted, as my 2 prior presentations talked about. And last but not least is a lot of times, not every time, but a lot of times there's interviews on getting selected, and doing the interview is science and or art, but understanding the process is it's going to be very, very beneficial to you of getting more and more work. Next slide. In public and private sector, we all know it's about, you know, the experience you have, and there's no really hard and fast rules in the private sector. Networking, getting to know people, reputation, expertise, networking, et cetera. It's a community service, marketing, knowing your strengths and weakness. And those are all good to know. And, you know, most of us know and find out the hard way sometimes about doing work with the private sector. There's good and bad things about marketing to the private sector, to the public sector. Next slide. In the public sector, it's very process oriented. As I said earlier, you've got this process on the federal side, on the state side, on school districts, municipalities. We have specific state laws that you have to follow. It's a 2-step process. So knowing the difference is very, very important on how you develop your business and how you improve your business and how you market your business. Next slide. For the most part, school boards and municipalities have a 2-step process in the issuance of RFQs. And in the SOQ that you submit, obviously you get information about the firm, the staff, the experience, and the handout. But I tell firms, and I've been providing debriefings to firms many years, decades, to firms that don't get selected. But the very first advice I give firms, construction companies and professional firms, read the evaluation technical criteria, follow the instructions. You'd be surprised how many times people don't follow instructions and be concise and to the point, because in the RFQ, for the most part, it gives you all the information that they want, and even in the format, the number of pages, on and on. And we just recently received some RFQs, and we had to disqualify, some firms that didn't read the instructions they didn't provide. So I emphasize to you to please read the RFQ carefully and the evaluation criteria, and then follow the instructions. Next slide. In the criteria, for the most part, it's a set of measuring tools that the staff uses from a technical standpoint. We understand the process is somewhat, the perception might be that some subjective, but as municipalities and government agencies, we're trying to make the process as objective as possible, allow staff to categorize and score firms objectively. So and it's difficult to make a subjective decision based on objective categories, and that's what we try to do. All the firms that we receive RFQs and bids on, we have an evaluation process based on that published criteria. As long as you have it published, cities, municipalities, school boards, states, they can ask for any information from you. They can ask you, how many horses you have on your ranch, but the point is, if it's published, if it's evaluated, it has to be published. And firms, for the most part, are scored on different categories, and they're compared in each of the categories. Next slide, Julio. In this two-step process, there's more specific detailed information that's requested in the RFP, because the first step is the RFQ. And for the most part, the RFQ is just the general information I said earlier, name of the firm and some of your organization, and on and on and on. And in the issuance of the RFP, there's more specific detailed information that owners and public agencies request. And it's specific to projects, be it vertical or horizontal, but the specific project information is included. Maybe we'll ask for your design philosophy and your approach. And in your project approach, typically a lot of agencies that I work with, because I've developed a network of many other municipalities across the state. And as for the project approach, and that's very, very important. How are you going to approach that project? What are you going to do in solving the owner's problem? And you need to have specific project-related experience. You need to get the evaluation criteria, read it carefully, as I said earlier, follow those instructions, concise and to the point. But going back to the related experience, let me just touch on another point, that municipalities and school districts and public agencies have different kinds of projects, and sometimes they're very unique projects. We in the city of Garland have a couple of very unique projects, and I advise companies and firms that if you don't have the experience, go out and team up with someone that has that experience, because you may provide some strength, but don't have all the information and all the experience that you may need to get a good opportunity to get that project. And so you go out there and team up with other firms, national firms, and there's a lot of firms that specialize in certain types of projects that teamed up. So if you don't have that kind of experience exactly, team up with someone and greatly increase your chances and your opportunities to be selected. Next slide. The 5 delivery method, I'll just touch on real quick, the hard bid, the competitive sealed proposals. And by the way, the state legislature a few years ago passed a law that, municipalities used to do nothing but hard bid. But in the CSP process, cities have the ability to negotiate price proposal and other published criteria. And we do, for the most part, with my experience, in Dallas, as well as also in Garland, and a lot of municipalities, I can't say most, but at least a lot that I know, they use a CSP process, because in the CSP process, they'll give you the evaluation criteria, how they're going to evaluate the firm, and how they're going to look at your not only your qualifications, but all the detailed information. And then lastly, but like I said, the state legislature gave public entities the ability to negotiate prices based on that published criteria with individual firms before we award. And sometimes, not often, but sometimes if we can't come to an agreement not only price, but something that was missing in the information, we may go to another bidder, because the RFC process is based on the best value, not on price. And then the other delivery methods are design build, construction manager risk, and the construction manager agent. And they are different because the agent is more of an advisor, as the word implies, an agent to the owner. The construction manager at risk has its own set of rules and regulations and types of projects that owners use a CM at risk. In the city of Garland, we use a lot of CM at risk. We're beginning to use a little bit of CSP. We plan to advertise some projects using a CSP, but we also use a CM at risk as well. Next slide. The getting shortlisted, that's the first step. And I said earlier, reading the criteria, be precise and to the point. And I said earlier, if you don't have that experience, team up with someone that does, maybe not a town firm. And then also, and as crazy as it may sound, a lot of firms that submit the information, they don't submit it in the order of the criteria, because I, as an evaluator, many times have to review submittals, and it's in different pages, different order, different sections, and what I publish the criteria. So I advise all firms that submit to please submit the information on the responses in the order of the criteria to make it a lot easier, and that goes a long way on the evaluator to say, hey, this particular criteria was a lot easier to read. They were concise, to the point. They made their case, and evaluators remember that. They remember that a lot. Okay, next slide, Julio. On the interview, we do interviews. I know from my experience in Dallas as well as now in Garland, we do interviews, and if possible, we ask who will be at the interview. Be selective on who will attend. Don't bring in a whole army of people when you do get an interview, and who'll make the presentation. For example, when we have interviews, principals and project managers most of the time, but my big advice to individual firms, the principal of a firm may not be the best person to make the presentation because he's not a good public speaker, although he's a principal. And sometimes the project manager may be better suited, because a lot of times the public agency, they really want to know about the project manager. So the best speaker is not necessarily the principal or the project manager, but learn to be a good speaker. And that's important, because to get your point across and get to know the specifics of the projects and understand the needs of your client. How are you going to solve his problem? So that's what we all would look for. And I can speak from many public agencies I'm aware of, that how are you going to help the client? How are you going to solve his problems? Next slide. And getting selected, like I said, by science, everyone thinks that a PowerPoint presentation is a great way of doing it, and good technology. It's not always the best. I've been in interviews where they didn't use any technology. So evaluate how you're gonna make a presentation. Know who your competitors are if possible, and it's what sets up your firm, and what makes you special, what sets you aside, what makes your mission, or the kind of work, the type of work, and how you approach the project, what makes you different. And again, practice your delivery, make your presentation memorable. And I always follow the 3 C's when I talk to people, and we look to firms on how they get selected, and communicate, collaborate, and coordinate, because those are very important to any project. And like I say, the 3 most important things we all are here for is getting the job, and getting the job. Next slide. Some of the key points I want to cover real quick about the city of Garland. We're our home rule city with council manager form of government. And by the way, when you do work not only with the city of Garland and Dallas and McKinney, believe it or not, it's important to know the type of government you have, because I've been familiar with other cities and have done work in the private sector with other cities, like in Houston. Houston is a strong mayor form of government. And with the mayor wants, the mayor gets. It's not like that in Dallas or the council manager form of government. So knowing the form of government is important to know. So who are the decision makers? Who are the people to know? City of Garland's approximately 235,000 people, 12th largest city. And we have our FY 19-20 budget, $767 million. And we currently, most of you know that we are implementing our 2019 bond program. It's about $423 million, $700. And the capital improvements department, we publish, just like the other cities, we published all of our projects through Ion Wave. And by the way, I do have that ion.com, that should be .net. I forgot about that. And as my predecessor said, register with Ion Wave and you'll receive all the advertisements. And also, if I may say, enter the correct commodity codes. And being involved in that, I would not just go about the construction and design, because there are other commodity codes that give you a clue what's going on with that municipality. Case in point, if a company or an entity is going to be doing some work for a needs assessment, you know that eventually something's going to happen with that needs assessment, and so receiving information about other kind of work that's going in that municipality will give you a clue of what's going on in that city and what are the needs of that city or school district, because in giving you that clue, it gives you the opportunity to contact the city and do some marketing. And by the way, there's a big difference between sales and marketing. I learned that long ago, there's a big difference. And by the time a project is advertised, most of the time it's too late to team up with somebody else. So you need to do your marketing up front, get to know the city where you want to do business, get to know the people, meet them. But I, for one, once a project is advertised, I don't communicate with anyone because everything goes through the purchasing department for the most part. So get to know some of the cities, network. And then in the city of Garland, we have a facilities management department that we implement a vast majority of our vertical projects. And the water department and the engineering department, of course, implement their water and wastewater and street projects. And our bond projects, they're managed by a program management company, AECOM. We hired AECOM to assist us. They're helping us implement our bond program. And we also have a lot of non-bond program projects and CIP projects. And those are managed by individual departments sometimes. And if they're vertical projects, it is handled by our department. And the delivery method on, as I said earlier, on vertical projects is mostly CSPs and CMAR projects, and horizontal, a lot of times a low bid. So, and then also, how's COVID affected us? It has, just like everybody else. We're working remotely. Luckily, our projects have not stopped. We're moving forward. There's never been any discussion about stopping our projects. So we're moving forward with not only our CIP, but also our bond projects. And like I said earlier, most of our staff, including myself, are working from home. We anticipate going back to the office probably no later than July 1st. And all of our work in selecting consultants and contractors, we ask them to follow the CDC protocols. So that all of our projects are moving forward. Next slide.
Okay, and due to time, David,
yeah,
if you can quickly touch on the next two slides.
Yeah, just to briefly, this is just real quick, the overall view of our project schedule for all of in our bond program. You can take a screenshot of that. I'm not going to go into individual project, but this gives you an overall that most of our work is still yet to come. So next slide. And understanding the selection process, I touched on some of these points already, but just understand the difference between public and private, making a business plan. Don't just state what you did, but state how you add value to help our client. And my last point, if you're doing the interview, you do it well and communicate effectively. I think that's to your benefit. Next slide. So if you have any questions, and I'm always available for any kind of debriefing. And by the way, for some reason you weren't selected, ask for a debriefing. that's one strong way that you can improve your chances of getting selected. That's all.
Okay, thank you, David. So in the respect of everybody's time, I am going to launch one more poll. Just want to get a quick view. It's just a one question. Let me go to the second poll. I know it's past 1 o'clock, but if you can take a minute. The question is, with the information presented today, will you be pursuing projects with City of Garland, City of McKinney, City of Plano, or none of the above? You can take a moment. We'll wrap up the webinar here in the next handful of minutes. And I did want to say, I did grow up in the City of Garland, so it is nice to see some of the information. I don't live in Garland anymore, but thank you, David, for the information. And also, Nick, they did ask if you could post the link. I know you posted it in the chat, but if you can post it in the Q&A, the project status link. And I'm going to give 30 more seconds. With the information presented today, will you be pursuing projects with the City of Garland, City of McKinney, City of Plano, or none of the above? Okay, the results are still coming in, and I just have 2 more slides after this. I just want to make sure we're aware of some information on some items that are coming up, and we'll wrap up. Okay, so I'm going to end the poll and share the results. 89% said yes, they would pursue projects with the City of Garland, 84% with the City of McKinney, 78% with the City of Plano, and we did have 1 person say none of the above. So what we have coming up, I want to thank everybody. If you have any questions, here's our information, our website, and our phone number. As I mentioned, this webinar was recorded, and we are sending out the information with the presentations. So for my presenters, if there's anything you want us to change or add in, please let me know. Send over your changes. But I think overall we provided great information. I did want to let everybody know we have another webinar coming up on June 12th. We have sent this information out. It's a Civil Works Infrastructure webinar. We have several partners, a lot of information on opportunities, and is geared more towards the flood. And Alberto, did you want to chime in on the information for this webinar?
Yes, this is a great opportunity for not only consultants, but cities, counties to learn about the different funding opportunities that are available. We have TGLO that has $4.3 billion in disaster recovery that's available. We have Texas Water Development Board. They're going to talk about their $791 million worth in flood infrastructure funding, and then the U.S. Army Corps with different rules and regulations that have been revised, and different opportunities that are coming up for both consultants and municipalities and counties.
Okay, thank you, Alberto. So be on the lookout. We'll continue to send this, and if you're interested in sponsoring, reach out to us. And yes, the presentation will be available to watch. It's being recorded, and the PowerPoint will be available to download. And we wanted to let everybody know also that March of this year, the mission statement for the RHCA changed, was added to reflect the architectural, engineering, and construction industry. So it reflects the entire spectrum of the industry. I know one key thing for contractors and design firms, the earlier you know about projects and you evaluate if that's something you can pursue, the better opportunity and more value you can put into those proposals that you submit. So at this time, I really want to thank all our sponsors, Nick, Clay, and David, Alberto, Louis, Gina for helping out, and also Arlene. Arlene works with me, and she's been key to making sure that everybody gets the information. So with that being said, if there's no other questions, I'm going to wrap up the webinar, and I hope everybody enjoys the rest of their Friday and their weekend. Okay? Thank you, everybody.
There it is. I did. I said thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.